Hey, how's it going, everybody? Before I started this video, I wanted to say thank you for the support on the Aaron video. I've spent a while trying to figure out what kind of videos I wanted to do for D&D, and apparently, this seems to be the format that I enjoy doing, and you enjoy watching. With that, I wanted to say thank you, and I hope, we can just continue on rolling, and if not, I'm going to keep making these videos. If so, great. If we keep rolling the way we did on the last one, perfect. But anyways, on to the next monster. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the Abalith. Have you ever wanted to run an eldritch horror in your D&D game? Do you want to make your players feel powerless against an alien that is too powerful to comprehend? Look no further. Welcome back to the channel. This is Let's Roll. And this is another episode of How Do You DM This? This time we take a look at the monster of every adventurer's nightmares. How do you DM the Abalith? The Abalith's publication history is interesting because it wasn't introduced in a monster manual, but an adventure module. This module being called Dwellers of the Forbidden City. This module was published in 1980 for AD&D 1E and included an adventure in a jungle where players were meant to find the Forbidden City and its secrets. In the main entrance to the Forbidden City, there is an Abalith in wait in a body of water that appears to be a shapeless blob that writhes with tentacles that are covered in warts. It is highly intelligent, creates illusions of whole walls and pathways, and turns people into slimy membranes that need a constant supply of water or they take damage. The next time Abaliths appear is in the Monster Manual 2, where they are described relatively the same as before, but are given this artwork, where they are given an actual form, looking like a fish that swam through Chernobyl. That's pretty much it for AD&D 1E. In AD&D 2E, we see the Abalith make a return in the Monstrous Compendium Volume 2, and it receives a decent upgrade in its artwork while staying very true to the previous art. The biggest change is that it seems a bit leaner. Abaliths also seem to have gained a ton of popularity in culture in general with this edition of AD&D, as they appear in more modules and sourcebooks than they do even now in this one edition. Which is a bit of a shame, really. You would think Abaliths would be a little bit more popular now. But apparently they've reached peak in 2E, but that's okay. We're here to change that. Wizards of the Coast, if you're listening, we want the Abalith again. Oh, hit the mic. All right. In 3rd edition, it gets another entry and is updated to this. It immediately appears more lean and bony with a bit of a snout. It still has mostly retained its shape from the last 2 entries, and something that I have yet to mention until now is that there are variants for both the 2nd and 3rd edition Abalith so far. The 3rd edition getting an entry in the Monster Manual called the Abalith Mage, and to be honest, I can only wonder what that looks like. 4th edition may actually have the coolest entries for the Abalith, as it gets not 3. I have it written down as 3 on here, but it's actually 4. There's 4 different stat blocks for with a servitor. The artwork is weird though, as it appears they went with a more AD&D 1st edition look to it while also giving it a mouth. That's a weird mouth. I don't know how to feel about it, to be honest. The servitors are also a really cool addition that we will get further into the lore about later. But just know, I wish the servitors were more prevalent in 5th edition in 2024. Speaking of 5th edition, the Abalith now looks like this. Yeah, take that, Cthulhu. This is a massive departure from the last 4 entries and looks more like a worm at this point. Kind of like the sandworm from Dune. And the mouth itself is just unsettling. And I honestly just think it's trying too hard to be scary at this point. The tentacles that the Abalith is also known for are also now lower on its body like a squid. Overall, it is a good monster design that strays a lot from the original. Kind of like Godzilla and Zilla 1998. kind of thing, where you had Zilla, or well, you had the 1998 movie Godzilla, and that movie went so poorly that Toho decided to take away the God from Godzilla on that one and just made it Zilla. Finally, we come to the D&D 2024 Aboleth. This thing is my personal favorite design, even though we don't get to see the rest of the body, and honestly, I think that's the point. From what we can see, this creature appears more alien than fish, while keeping it almost a Kraken or Cthulhu presence. The artwork depicts it next to a pair of cultists, one being probably sacrificed to it, to give a sense of scale next to these ancient beings. With the scaling, we can surmise that the Aboleth is rather large. Starting from the top, 2 large tentacles come off its head as its body hunches over. I believe as we follow its body, there are more large tentacles covering the return of a fish-like body, like the originals, while having smaller tentacles underneath its body to hold itself upwards if need be. The head almost reminds me of the Pred alien, with the elongated cranium and the mandibles full of smaller teeth. Honestly, the mystery lies in what is under those tentacles around its body. More tentacles? A fish-like body? Or an endless void? The mystery is what makes this design and how it is depicted a masterpiece within the 2024 catalog of monsters. I think whenever this monster manual came out and I was watching the videos for it and everything, because, you know, everybody's got to watch the reviews for it. Whenever someone sees that artwork, they know that whoever did this art and Wizards of the Coast cooked with this book. I'm telling you, the artwork for the D&D 2024 is so good. A lot of people are probably going to say you're glazing, but, you know, that's just how it is. Anyways. Alright, let's get into the lore. Aboleths, according to the 2024 Monster Manual, live in extremely secluded underwater areas. They wish nothing but utter destruction of non-aquatic empires and creating servants to themselves. I love how it says servants, even though we all know that it means slaves. Holding almost infinite secrets with truths that would melt the mind of any intelligent being. Aboleths are insatiable in their search for more knowledge and consume the minds of those below them, which is everything, to grow the mental library of ancient secrets they are all bestowed with upon birth. Going a bit deeper, we learn quite a few things from earlier editions. The Aboleth's high intelligence allows it to cast illusions that are extremely realistic with visual and audible components. When it comes to procreation, an Aboleth brood is made up of 1 to 3 offspring that are as big and powerful as their parent. This happens due to the parent having male and female reproductive organs which they will use to lay an egg every 5 years. Well, 1 to 3 eggs every 5 years. Once the egg is laid, it takes around 5 years for it to hatch and another 10 years for it to mature. In that span of time, the child will obey its parents completely. Well, its parent completely, I should say. These Aboleths do get hungry, and with that hunger, you think they would be really only wanting to eat intelligent life. However, they are actually omnivorous, and usually eat algae and microorganisms if no intelligent life is present. On another note, the slime of the Aboleth that it uses to cover itself in water can be used to create potions of water breathing. 5e adds a lot more info, including the Aboleths existed before the gods, and enslaved beings that held up their own empire, basically making them gods before gods. Once the gods did come to existence, they destroyed the empire that the Aboleths had created, and this event lives in their mind forever through their passing of knowledge through birth. We also get further confirmation that they either come from or have a special connection to the elemental plane of water, as their bodies are recreated in this plane if they die in the material realm, which is a bit of a departure from the original intent of these guys. I think if you asked someone that designed any edition before this, they would have never said that the elemental plane of water had anything to do with these Aboleths. With all this information, it has me wondering if either the Aboleths were enemies or allies with Mind Flayers. Because they both had ancient empires. Now, we don't know where the Aboleths had their empire. The Mind Flayers, we know, had their empire throughout a lot of the Far Realm and quite a bit of the Material Realm. As we know, Githyanki are simply just humans that have been altered to the point of near in recognition to ourselves due to the Mind Flayers' temperament with us, or with them. They are both aberrations with similar objectives, but due to their similarities, I feel that they would come at odds eventually to see which one is superior, because they both have this sense of superiority, which I think every aberration does in D&D. It's usually just like, if you're an alien, you're just superior to everything, and no other alien is above you. Kind of like Beholders, Mind Flayers do the same thing, Aboleths do the same thing. I don't remember any of the other aberrations, but that's what this video series is for. This whole idea would be an incredible adventure, though, or a campaign even. So feel free to do with that as you will. Okay, alright. After going through the extreme details of the Abalith, we finally get to the part where we look at the way that it is represented within D&D 2024 and my interpretation on how it is DM'd. I think with the last video, with the Aarakocra video, there was a bit of confusion as to what I was really trying to get to, and especially for the Aarakocra, but not so much the Abalith, but for the Aarakocra, it was more of like a, as a monster. Some people were saying, there was a lot of talk about how the Aarakocra are as PCs, and I mentioned that in the video, but I wasn't really intending for that, because this is D&D 2024 thing. The Aarakocra are not playable in 2024 technically yet, even though they also technically are, because everything in 5e is backwards compatible with 2024. But I personally don't abide by that, just because I want to see everything updated to D&D 2024. I think it'd be pretty lazy to not have an update for that. So anyways, moving along. Yeah. So this is my interpretation on how the Abalith is DM'd. Let's get into it. So before even getting into the stat block itself, the Abalith have layers that do their own thing. Keeping in mind their deep subterranean nature, there are a few things that are unique to their layers. First of all, they keep rooms of air within to keep their slaves and treasure. All water is fouled within 1 mile, and the Abalith can cast Project Image within a mile. That also allows it to use telepathy. Now that that is covered, into the stats. Looking at the numbers first, the AC, HP, Strength, Intelligence, and Charisma are decently high. Its speed is low on the ground, as it drags itself with tentacles, but high in water, as it, just can swim. It carries the ability for telepathy, the language of deep speech, and dark vision. It also has traits such as being amphibious and eldritch restoration that allows it to restore its body in the far realm, which makes more sense to me than the plane of water. So in D&D 2024, I think they kind of reverted back to the far realm roots of it. It also says that the DM can decide wherever the body wants to restore itself, but it particularly names the far realm. A bit of a retcon from 5e that I think is a good thing. They also have legendary resistances, Mucus Cloud, and Probing Telepathy that allows it to gain knowledge of the creature's desires. Its actions are multi-attack, Tentacle, which allows to grapple, Consume Memories, Dominate Mind, and legendary actions that allow for Tentacle and Consume Memories in between players' turns. Overall, the stat block really sells the Aboleth lore, in my opinion. Dominate Mind is cool in particular, because it allows the Aboleth to, in theory, charm a creature forever, while forcing them to ally with itself when it is within 60 feet of them, taking control of that creature. I only say in theory, because if the Aboleth is 1 mile away for 24 hours, the creature can make a saving throw, ending the effect on a success. However, the Abalith is not very prone to leave its lair very often, so good luck. The same applies if the affected creature takes damage, however, which also the Abalith may not allow. So here is my interpretation of the way this is supposedly DM'd. Keep the Abalith in water if possible, or give it a creative mode of transport on land if it has servants or allies. Things like massive carts or flying vehicles are what I think of. Just imagine, like a Kuatoa invasion, and on like massive war wagons they have Abaliths. If in water, use the mucus cloud to obscure the Abalith and use the curse it applies that causes a creature to basically be forced in water. Once applied, the creature cannot be healed in water and takes slow damage effect out of water. This effect will force the players to be out of their comfort zone in the water and cause them to think creatively. With the Abalith's high intelligence, it will know which creatures have a low enough wisdom saving throw to use its dominate mind on as soon as possible. So do that. After Dominate Mind has been applied, constantly use its multi-attack and consume memories as much as possible. If a player is trying to talk to an Abalith telepathically, it will learn all of their desires and is extremely manipulative and convincing, using their charisma to ally the players to them if possible, or at least lull them into a sense of security until it can consume their mind. To give the players some leeway, give them access to those pockets of air in the layer discussed before, since more than likely the Abalith will be there. I would also recommend small 5 by 5 foot islands that go above the water surface to allow the players some tactical maneuvering. The air pockets are interesting because an Abalith doesn't want to come out the water, but it needs a way to protect its treasure in those air pockets. So what better way than to use servants? I think the servants can basically become, it can be like the players go into the lair. They see they don't see the Abalith. It's just like a cloud of mucus in the water, but they're not exactly sure what it is. They see these little 5 by 5 islands, and then through the water, they might be able to see, some like light coming from a treasure. But they don't see any other air pockets. Now, as soon as they get into the water, they might have a way to see the air pockets, or maybe even dark vision, and then they can see the air pockets from above the water. Who knows? They go into the water, the cloud of mucus comes, towards them, starts attacking, and it is revealed to be an Abalith. And, at least one person is probably cursed because the Abalith probably, tries to grapple or attack the players. And then the fight ensues. They go on the little 5 by 5 islands, if necessary, and eventually the Abalith will probably grapple a couple and bring them down underneath the surface of the water, where they'll inevitably get cursed. These pockets of air become invaluable. Now, the curse allows a player to breathe underwater as well, but the Abalith doesn't particularly probably want to come out of the water, so these players, seeing that they're probably closer to the air pockets at this point than the islands themselves that their party is up on, they probably might swim over to an air pocket, and they get into the air pocket, and then boom, they look around, and they're servitors to the Abalith, lying in wait, just waiting for someone to come there. And then they start fighting the servitors, and then the rest of the party's like, uh-oh, we have to get down there, but we have to get past the Abalith first. So we have this really cool dynamic of, how do you split the party, and how does the party come back together? How do they deal with these multiple threats while also trying to not get cursed or get cursed and dealing with that curse? I think we have an encounter here, ladies and gentlemen. Personally, I think there are a ton of possibilities for a fight with an Abalith or Abaliths and their servants that can become a fight that the whole table will remember. If you are at the point, though, that your party is really ready to fight an Abalith, do not go easy, as they should be ready for a big challenge such as this, especially if you communicate through the world that this fight will be tough and they know what they're getting into. Or they don't. If this is meant to be an ambush for some tough players, be my guest. Use that Abalith. Destroy them. So, that's going to be it for the Abalith. I always knew that this monster would be fun to play, and to get a deep understanding of, as I love its concept and the way it differs itself from the Mind Flayers while having the same goals. It has been a pleasure to do this video for you all, and without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, until the next one, let's roll.